Welcome to the Lady Family Live, everybody. We're back. It's great to be back. I think the last time we checked in was springtime, so hopefully everybody's doing well and excited to hear more about the new releases that we just came out with. It's a beautiful time here in Napa to visit, so if you're thinking about it, it's on your radar. I'd love to see you. There's definitely that buzz around the valley. The restaurants are releasing their fall menus. There's just a lot of great stuff happening. The leaves are just starting to turn color a little bit and truly coming into what I think is one of the greatest times of the year to come out here. So if you're thinking about it, we'd love to see you. I also want to mention, make sure use that chat function that we have here with Zoom. We'd love to hear what you guys are drinking tonight or what you've had recently. Where are you joining us from? Anything you want to say, any questions you have, use that chat function. We'd love to get the interaction going here. We'd be happy to hear from you. I also want to mention that if you are looking for holiday gifts, corporate gifts, or otherwise, you got someone special in your life, you wanted something nice for them, our gifting page is online on our website on ladyfamilywines.com. You can find all the gifting options that we have. And I know we're not even at Halloween yet, but it's like, we got to get it out there. The gifts are available. I know they've had Christmas decorations at Costco for a month already, so crazy. Anyway, also want to say that if you have checked your email today, we had a very pleasant little announcement, I guess you could put it that way, if you're a wine club member. We released the first vintage of our Fell sparkling wine from the Savoy Vineyard. I'm sipping on a glass of that right now, and the general consumer offer will go out tomorrow, but if you are a member, you have early access to this wine. So it's going to go fast. There's only 80 or so cases. We're going to have Ryan Hodgins from Fell join in the sec to tell us more about it, but there's only like 80 cases of this wine. So if you like sparkling wine, if you like champagne, you're going to want to get some of this. So let's take that conversation a little further. Let's get Ryan on. We'll have Chris join on in a little bit. We're going to cover all the new releases, talk about harvest. And I see I'm already getting questions, so that's great. I'm happy about that, guys. Let's keep those coming. I want to keep those questions flowing in as the winemakers join, because that makes it much more interactive and much greater webinar. So let's get this chat and questions going here. We got Carol joining from St. Louis. Oh, it says chat's disabled. Thanks, Carol. Let me see what's going on with that. How I can, maybe I'm unable to change that right now. I don't know why it would be. We've got Ryan joining here. So if the chat function is not working for you, use that Q&A function, I guess. I apologize. I'm not a Zoom expert, despite all these meetings we did over the last 2 years. Let's see here. Anyone? Okay, here we go. Oh, here we go. Let's go, everyone. This should work now. So let's see. Let me test this quick chat out. I'll just say, hey guys, boom. So there we go. Send the chat out. Ryan, welcome. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
Harvest beard going. It's looking good. Looking
Thank you.
Looking great. But hey, I wanted to jump right into this little special thing that we are enjoying tonight, that we're celebrating tonight. This is the 2015 Fell Savoy Vineyard sparkling wine, brut, I guess, sparkling.
Brut. Yep.
Dude, this is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
Honestly, 2015, this has been a long time coming. We've been trying to keep this under wraps, secret, for a very long time. So tell us more about it. Let's hear about it.
Absolutely. So the idea of this came about, obviously, 7, 8 years ago, probably in 2014 winter. We started talking about how Savoy Vineyard has historically been used for some really great sparkling wines. When the vineyard was planted, a portion of it was planted for sparkling clones that went to like Roederer and Schramsberg. So some of the best sparkling producers in California have sourced from the vineyard. And we replanted most of those sparkling blocks to Pinot Noir, but you know, us in-house love sparkling wine, and we're like, well, maybe we could play with this a little bit. So in 2015, which was a very early vintage, we started picking a little bit of Chardonnay and a little bit of Pinot Noir on, I think it was August 11th. It was super early. Actually, you and I were both in Texas that week for Texom, and I flew back that morning, and the morning we were picking for this wine.
Oh, great.
And pressed it, fermented it in large 500-liter barrels, so 130-gallon barrels, where it aged for about 9 months. And then in June of 2016, we bottled it under crown cap. So this is method champenois, traditional way of making sparkling wine, carbonating in the bottle naturally with yeast. So it was bottled in 2016 in June, and then disgorged, which means the crown cap comes off, the yeasts that were inside the bottle and that caused that carbonation are flushed out, and then a cork is put in. That happened in August of this year. So this was over 6 years in bottle and then 9 months in barrel. So that extended tirage time really helps build the palate, as the wine has great texture. Personally, the blend of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, I think, is a nice, are some of my favorite sparkling. You get a little bit of the red fruits, some kind of red apple character from the Pinot, and still the bright citrus notes from the Chardonnay.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up on. It's absolutely delicious. You definitely get that yeasty quality as well. Is that, it was 5-6 years in bottle? Is that typical for, is that, I guess the question would be, is that like a short period of time or normal or extended? Like, where would you kind of throw
this
that?
would be in kind of during the extended tirage, so a typical, let's see, off the top of my head, I believe the mandatory minimum for a wine that's called champagne is maybe 2 years in tirage. Maybe it's as little as 18 months. But the good houses generally are looking for 3 to 4 years of time in bottle. And what's happening is when the wine is in bottle, it's lying on its side. And so the yeast, after they've fermented the sugar and carbonated the wine, the yeast fall to the bottom of the bottle. And over months and months, they slowly break down and start to release some of their manoproteins and just compounds that add to flavor and texture and the yeastiness and the richness of that wine, which is necessary to counter the really incredible acid you get in sparkling, because sparkling wine is picked at 17, 18 bricks with really high levels of acid versus our still wines, which are picked at 22, 23 bricks with still high acid, but nothing like sparkling.
Yeah. So the result is a little bit lower alcohol, that beautiful freshness, and then of course you add some dosage, right, which brings a little bit of sugar back into the wine. But from our conversations, it sounds like you really stayed minimal on that because you wanted to highlight that Anderson Valley freshness. Can you comment on how you sort of determine
absolutely. So we do what's called a dosage trial, and that's basically to try different levels. So dosage is a little bit of sugar that's added back right at the time when the cork is put into the bottle. And that sugar is all about balancing the wine. Our thoughts all along as this wine aged was that we were going to go zero dosage. Like, we liked the way the wine was tasting. We didn't think it was probably going to need any rounding or polish from the dosage. And when we did the trial, we trialed 0, 2 grams per liter, which is below detectable. That's not even really being perceived as sweet. 4, 6, 8, and 10. And by 10 was really sweet. And that's, a lot of, once you get above the 6 to 8 gram range, the character of the wine starts to get lost and it kind of tastes more like generic sparkling wine. So we were debating between 0, 2, or 4, and really found that 2 just gave the wine this perfect amount of polish and a delicacy without ever being perceived as anything approaching sweet.
So we got a question about where this wine was, where did we keep it all that time? So I know, you've probably shifted it around facilities, but it wasn't ever here at Cliff Lede. It was always at wherever Fell was being made. And
exactly. So it was here at our facility where the Fell Winery is in Sonoma. We have a whole row of sparkling cages, and they are metal baskets with all the bottles laying on their sides inside.
And so we have we have a couple more vintages of this in the pipeline, but it's not like an every year thing. So I just want to stress that for everybody, if you like sparkling wine, get your hands on this now, because the next one, it's going to still be down the road a little bit. And then after that, we'll see. So very delicious, Ryan. I commend you on that. For what I just learned today is your first sparkling wine. Obviously you've made Pinot Noir and Chardonnay for years, but first sparkling wine, which is I mean, it's commendable, man. Even that the mousse is super fine, and it just like it's really dialed in. I'm really happy with that, how that turned out. But we can shift gears. I mean, we can obviously keep talking Savoy. We've got two beautiful new releases from that exceptional vineyard, our estate property. We'll start with the 2020 Fell Wines Savoy Vineyard Chardonnay. This is one of the only two Chardonnays from the Savoy Vineyard on the planet. Us and there's one other winery that makes a little bit of Savoy Chardonnay. In recent years, I know that you've played around with some of the techniques here. Was there anything different that you did in 20 versus 19, or how would you sort of sum up what you see in the glass with this wine?
Absolutely. So yeah, Chardonnay is only a very small part of Savoy. Savoy is 43 acres, and about 5 of it is planted to Chardonnay. So there's not a lot of it out there. What we did with this wine was kind of building on the lessons we learned in 19 of incorporating some winemaking techniques of, kind of our traditional process, which had been to ferment the wine or the juice in puncheons. We really like the larger volume barrels because it's a more nuanced impact of oak when you're using a 500 liter barrel as opposed to a 225 liter. So there's a little bit of new oak in here, unlike our Anderson Valley Chardonnay. So we do like to have a little bit of texture and richness from the new wood. But then we only leave it in that new puncheon for about 6 months or so before we transfer it to stainless steel. And then we store it for almost a year in stainless steel barrels. That really hyper protective environment, no oxygen exposure, kind of crystallizes the minerality of the wine. There's that beautiful flinty note that goes so well with the lemon curd and kind of green apple notes.
So on that note, what was I going to ask? I just totally lost my train of thought. I think that that direction you've taken this wine has been exceptional. I mean, it definitely reflects back to that Burgundian inspired style. This is what my question was. This is made in 2 puncheons essentially, right? Is that correct, or just one?
2. We generally have 2 puncheons and a few barrels. Depends on the vintage. 20 was super light vintage, so I think it was scant 2 puncheons, 2 barrels.
Right, and then one is new, so you have a little bit of new, but it's not
exactly
new oak. And then the other question I had was for malolactic. Is it fully malolactic for everything, or does it vary? Or
it varies from year to year, and depending on the vintage, depending on what kind of acid we see when the fruit comes in. In 20, there was very little malolactic because 20 was a hotter vintage, and so we got the grapes, at the sugar we wanted, but the acid wasn't enough to justify malolactic. So we went ahead and just rested ML on the wine so as to kind of preserve that brightness and freshness to it.
And I know we're getting kind of technical here, but for everybody watching, right, it's malolactic is the conversion of acid. It'll take a wine from that crisp, Granny Smith apple acidity to the oaky, or sorry, not oaky, but buttery quality, which you often get in those oaky Chardonnays. So interesting that I didn't know that about this wine, that you sort of play around with how much malolactic takes place in the Savoy. That's some good information, and a delicious wine. Why don't we talk a little bit about 2020, since we are tasting a vintage that was, a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time, obviously. It's great to, be able to see that there was some really bright spots, like, well, I had my first child. That was a good thing, but we also made some great wine. So here in Napa, where I'm currently at, harvest time, it was so smoky, I couldn't see across the road. And so we didn't make any 2020 wines at Cliff Lede, but these wines from Fell are delicious. So what is it that sort of saved the Anderson Valley that year? Because I know there was a lot of smoke around California.
There was a lot of smoke around California. And, one of the things to remember is that California is an enormous state. And so, Anderson Valley is a full, about 120 miles north of Napa, up against the Pacific Ocean. And there were numerous fires not too far from Anderson Valley. They were to the south and east of us. And one of the things that makes Anderson Valley such a perfect place to grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay is we have this direct wind influence from the Pacific, and just the valley itself, which in the picture behind me can capture, is a wind tunnel for cool, clean, fresh air coming off the ocean. And that breeze was blowing throughout the fires during harvest. And so while there was smoke to the south and east, it never
blowing it down into Napa. Yeah.
Unfortunately, so yes, that's it. It all went your direction and stayed out of our neck of the woods. And in 2008, for example, we weren't so lucky. There was smoke that got pulled into the valley, but in 2020, we were able to it was a very condensed harvest because there was that heat wave associated with the first round of fires in August. And so we were picking as fast as we possibly could, both because the fruit was all ready at once due to the heat, and then also just because we never knew if that breeze would stop and the smoke might change direction. So we brought the entire Fell harvest in less than 3 weeks. And it was super condensed, and it helped that it was a very light harvest as well because of the drought conditions. And but the concentration we got from the wines, the cleanness.
Yeah, the Pinot, I mean, this is really fantastic. Wow. So that's the 2020. So I just poured myself a little bit of that Savoy. So as always, combination of clones from the vineyard.
Yeah, kitchen sink. This was, the replants that we did in 2014 when we took out some of that sparkling fruit, ironically, and went to what we call the heritage clones of Pinot Noir, more Martini, Calera, Swan, Mount Eden, plant material that's been in California for 50 years or more, and has really been selected for how well it does in our climate. Those blocks are starting to take a little more of a lead role in this wine. And so that beautiful spice, the black cherry, there's hints of cola, the savory notes of kind of the crushed redwood needles, and it's I think another stunning vintage from Savoy.
I definitely get a lot of that savory, and it's like every year it's like maybe that cola, as you mentioned, like maybe that dominates a little more. This one, I feel like, at least in the early stages here, has a lot of those like dried herbs, and it's just really pretty. How did 2022 go for you?
Whew.
So I mean, are you done now? I mean, you're done with Fell, so I mean,
We're all,
how are
it was another condensed harvest. Again, we unfortunately have been more influenced by heat over the last couple of vintages. And so, my general philosophy is whenever we see anything in the 90s or approaching triple digits, it's time to start thinking about how we're going to get the fruit in. And so we picked as fast as we possibly could. My co-winemaker Sarah Green and I were focused in getting all of our Chardonnay as fast as possible, really trying to keep that at bright acid and nice moderate bricks. Savoy kind of came in right as the heat was starting to roll in, and so it was a really impressive effort by the vineyard teams to be out there night after night, picking as absolutely much fruit as possible. But once everything hit the cellar, we're really pleased with what we've got. We've got, dozens of different lots that are going to be the building blocks for, Savoy, our other vineyard designates, the Anderson Valley, Pinots, and Chardonnay. So it's feeling very bullish on the vintage once again.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. It was kind of crazy when it got hot for that many days, unlike anything we've kind of seen in a while, and obviously dealing with drought. But we did get some rain right at the end of September. That was good. So things are starting to recharge a little bit, and now we're just hoping for more rain.
Exactly.
We get it. Well, Ryan, I know you got to get going. So thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time to introduce the wines and get everybody excited about these new releases and that amazing sparkling wine that as your first effort, man, I got to say again, it's just fantastic. The wines are just incredible that are coming out of Fell. So thanks again. Won't keep you any longer, and have a great night. We'll see you at the harvest party, I guess. I should say the employee harvest party. I'll see you there next week.
Sounds good. Take care, Jason.
Right. Bye-bye. Okay, well, that was a nice start to the webinar. Wow, those wines are just exceptional, delicious, collectible. Oh my gosh. I think some of that 2020 Savoy Pinot, that's what I'm going to stick in the cellar to drink with William when he's my boy, when he's of age, because we're not going to have any Cliff Lede, unfortunately. But anyway, let's talk a little bit more about wine. Let's get into the Cliff Lede releases. We were talking about the 2022 harvest, so maybe we can start there. And I actually have Chris Tynan here. He was just hanging out in his office down the hall a little bit, but he's going to join me live here at Cliff Lede. So excuse me as I try to recenter the camera here. Looks like we got Chris, myself, we've got John up there. Everybody's joining the party. But Chris, thanks for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here. Did you want to have a little bit of those bubbles?
Yeah,
why
sure.
not, right? Why not? Here, I gotta clean.
Got to try it the other day. It's pretty amazing. Brian did an awesome job.
So while we're having that, why don't you tell us a little bit about the 2022 vintage for you?
I could echo some of Ryan's comments. It was kind of fast and furious. We had a heat wave come in the big week of Labor Day. And so we experienced a couple days of 100+ degree heat. And then followed by a couple of 110 degree plus days, and then bookended by another couple 100 degree plus days. So we, with our experience here with our vineyard, knowing them so well, we did a lot of picking before the heat came. A lot of our earlier blocks were ready and tasted beautiful, and we didn't want to see them go through the heat. And then, so we had probably 95% of our fruit picked by the end of that hot week, and then some of the cooler spots we let hang through the heat and did well through the last little bit of heat. So we finished on September 15th, which is usually about a month earlier than what we're usually used to picking. The good news is the the entire year has been amazing. It was another drought year, so it was an earlier bud break. So the grapes did get a long time to kind of hang on the vine and mature and get complex. And so the stuff that we're draining to barrel now is really, really good. And I think it's going to be another great year. Just a little bit, as a winemaker, a little bit more of the experience and techniques that we use here. We have a lot of shade cloth up in the vineyards to protect them from some of the hot days. That really helps. We have beautiful canopies. Early this year, we really managed to put on a lot of leaf cover to protect the grapes from those heat events. So we did really well. And then we have our ace in the hole is our optical sorter. So anything that might have stuck out during the heat and got a little crispy, never made it into the tank. It got sorted out with the optical sorter.
So smaller yields probably than we would have hoped for, right? Given the heat spike.
The earliest stuff will be normal to above average. The middle stuff will be kind of average. And then the stuff that kind of came in the end will be a little bit lighter. So I think we'll be pretty close to normal. But maybe just down maybe 5-10%. So
that's not a lot. I actually thought it was going to be like in the 20%, but I guess you've just started draining tanks.
We still have a long way to go. We have drained most of the tanks, and we've just starting to press the rest. So we'll get the final kind of yields and nice when we're done.
Okay, well, lots of good wine then. That's good news. I like to hear that. Well, while I'll let you sip on that for a moment, I'll talk about our first wine that we're going to have. I'll let you talk more about the winemaking, but I'm happy that I can speak to this wine. So this is the 2021 Marla Blanc. I'm sure you've gotten the email about it, but this is a special wine. This wine is named for my sister Marla, and she obviously, loves the wine and whatnot, and loves what we do here. Cliff Lady Wines, Fell Wines are her favorite wines on the planet. And she recently just moved down here to be with us in Napa Valley. So it's really exciting to have this wine be released and to have her down here with us in Napa Valley with her family. So it's a very special wine, very special, named after a very special person. We have a beautiful little half acre of white varietals planted here in Stags Leap District now, and the future of that block is what's going to increasingly push this wine to the next level over and over. And then we have access to some of the greatest growers throughout Napa Valley for this, the Semillon and the Sauvignon variant, these things we work with our white wine program. So that's what this wine is all about. It's certainly our flagship white wine. If you haven't tasted it, it's worth grabbing a bottle just to give it a whirl. Only 2 barrels were made, so it's like 50 cases or something. I mean, this is less production than the sparkling wine. This is even more rare than that. So if you're looking for special white wine, if you really like white wine, I would give this a try. It certainly is something that I would imagine, Chris, that you could age in the cellar for years and see as it develops more and more nuance. I mean, even just pouring in the glass, I can see that it's got this nice sort of rich, unctuous quality to it. But I think the most striking thing for me is that it's under 13% alcohol. Like, it's a fairly ethereal wine. Like, it's lifted and just really pretty. So Chris, what was, when I think it was my dad that said, hey, I got an idea. I want to make like a flagship white wine. I want to name it after my daughter.
No pressure there.
Yeah, no pressure. So how did you start thinking about what this wine was going to be? And then how did it all come together in the end?
Well, over the years, we've had a couple special barrels that we've always wanted to kind of, hold back, and because they're so good, they just kind of stand out heads and tails above the rest of the wines. And when we set out to make this wine, we wanted it to be age-worthy. We wanted it to be elegant. We really wanted the aromatics and to be on the focus. So this wine we really focused in on lots that were beautifully perfumed. We wanted it to be very elegant. And like you said, the acid and the alcohol are in such beautiful balance in this wine. We really wanted it just to be a really beautiful perfumed wine. And I think kind of in the next fall and then into next year, I think this wine's going to even blossom even more.
I have to tell you, every time I come back to it, over the last 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks that I've had the ability to taste it, every time I open a bottle, there's just a little bit more expression. There's just a little bit more coming out. We got a question about the blend. It looks like Kristen answered that one. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Wine Club team and everybody in the chat there. But this is mostly Semillon. So maybe a grape that not everyone's super familiar with. It's white Bordeaux varietal, but can you speak to Semillon and what it is comparatively to Sauvignon Blanc?
Absolutely. So Semillon is one of the blending grapes from Bordeaux, usually paired with, obviously, with Sauvignon Blanc and it's Sauvignon Vert. Those are the three different varieties they'll use there. And a lot of my early aha wines were white Bordeaux. So I kind of always have loved Sauvignon Blanc with Semillon blended in. And then a life-changing wine, I got to try the 47 Le Ville-Hauptbriand Blanc from Bordeaux, which is, you know, a Semillon-dominated wine a few years ago, and it was still beautiful, amazing, aged perfectly, and just so waxy and expansive and ethereal that I thought, gosh, one day if I get to really work with Semillon and get it to that level, I'm kind of chasing that dragon, that dream of that wine, because it was kind of a life-changing wine, and it taught me what Semillon can do. And you know, we've all had Sauternes, which is, you know, a lot of Semillon in there, and you know what Semillon can do with the sweet wine and how beautiful it can be. So with the dry wine, just, you know, building on all that experience, those beautiful aromas. This is completely dry, obviously. Not a sweet wine, but yeah, it just
I find it's like, you know, some of the flavor profile of Sauvignon Blanc, like it's not leaning into the Chardonnay category, but it has the sort of some of that richness of the Chardonnay. You said waxiness. It's got that, like, that little coating quality. And if you've had our Cliff Lede Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc, you've probably noticed that it's a bit rounder and fuller than most, you know, Sauvignon Blancs that are out there. But you know, I love this interplay here of the acidity, because it is a, you know, a brighter, I mean, like I say, it's less than 30% alcohol. So there's that lightness to it, but then there's that waxy, like, mouth coating quality that just, even after you swallow it, it just lingers and keeps, you know, delivering exceptional wine. We got a question around how, you know, how it was fermented. This was mostly oak, right?
Yeah, these were barrel ferments. Yeah. So barrel fermented in the cave. So very cold temperatures. We keep it around 54 degrees in the cave. So long, slow fermentation, some barrel stirring during fermentation, and then some strategic stirring on élevage to kind of bring out some of that richness and complexity to the mouthfeel. But I really love that there's an ethereal quality to this wine where it's so light and it envelops your palate just in a really beautiful, gentle way. But like you said, there's a long persistence, beautiful kind of perfume that lingers in your palate for a while, which is nice.
So you think, you know, it's obviously delicious now, but you're thinking, you know, like, come holiday season, come, you know, even next summer, as maybe the temperatures are warming back up, like, that's when you're thinking, like, this is really going to start to drive forward. And then how long after that, you know, would you think? I mean, I know it's the first time we've done this, but are you thinking, like, you know, 5 years down the road, or?
I think like at Thanksgiving, when that week of Thanksgiving, when the weather's cool and the leaves are changing and the fall aromas are in the air, I think this wine's gonna, like, start to really shine. And then that'll continue all through the winter, and then I don't know, we'll kind of see. I think we know the acidity is there to age well, and we know the balance and elegance is there to age well. But I think this could age for, you know, for another 4 or 5 years easily, and then
it'll be like that 40, was it
45? 47.
That's an old bottle of white wine, I'll tell you.
If we're alive, then we may not be able to tell.
Exactly. Cool. Well, thanks for the description on the Marla. Lovely wine, 2021 vintage, by the way. Great vintage, right? Smaller yields, but, you know, no fires, no major heat issues. Just like a nice, great vintage. And we'll talk more about the 2021s, of course, when the red wines start coming out in a couple years. But the first wine from 2021 that we have out there, the Marla, and obviously our Sauvignon Blanc is out there as well. But give that a try. Only, I don't even know how much is left, because it's been kind of out there for a couple weeks now. So yeah, visit the website, see if you can get some. We're going to chase the last two red wines, and then that'll be it for the night here, guys. So start with Calistoga.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. So 2019 Cliff Lede Calistoga Cabernet Sauvignon. This is from our estate vineyard in Calistoga. That's a 20-acre vineyard, I believe. Yeah. And most of this fruit for this wine comes from the younger blocks. 100% Cabernet, you little blending
There's a
here.
little Merlot.
I didn't bring the check.
Bordeaux in here. Yeah, we always, you know me and my blending grapes. I like to sneak a little bit in there just to add those little layers of complexity. This vineyard is an old ancient creek bed, so very rocky, gravelly soils, and it's tucked up on the western side of Calistoga, just below Diamond Mountain, right in there in the foothills. So it's just really well-drained soils. It's actually a cooler, Calistoga is considered a warmer AVA for Napa Valley, but the way this vineyard is situated very low and at the base of the mountains, it's really protected in the afternoons. It stays really nice bit cooler, which is gonna, you know, keep our natural acidity and our balance in flavors, and we're not gonna get too many jammy flavors. So there's always gonna be some, just, to me, this wine is just lots of rocks and gravel and cassis and blackberry. And there's always a little truffle note in this wine to me. There's always like a little black winter truffle note that speaks of kind of like the terroir, the earth, and the loam that's in there.
Yeah, this is an exceptional rendition from that vineyard. I know that we've had it for a number of years now, and obviously the longer you work with a vineyard, the more you get to kind of know which sections do well with what and how to farm it better. And so it'll be exciting to see where this wine goes, especially, you know, down the road with those new blocks coming online.
Yeah, Allison, our viticulturist, has worked with our vineyard manager Beto to really dial in those changes in the soil from that creek bed. So you get some pure rocky, gravelly soils that kind of go back into loam, that go back into gravel. And so we really isolated those portions of the soil in the blocks and planted specific clones and rootstock to those in the little individual sites. So this wine's going to get better and better and better over the years.
Really nice. I mean, also coming from 2019, which, you know, I know we made Crossfade in 2019, so I'm kind of like, I love that wine, but I'm totally in love with the 2019 vintage. I just feel like everything that you've come out with from 2019, it has the concentration and the power that I love in Cabernet, but there's this like really elegant, pretty note to the wines, like the fruit profile. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but especially coming up 2018, which was an exceptional year, I just found them to be a little bit more like classically kind of powerful and a little bit more, you know, muscular maybe. And then these have a little bit more elegance to them. What are your thoughts on 18, 19? I mean, I just love this vintage.
I think, you know, it's going to be a battle. Those two are two amazing vintages. I think ultimately the 2019s will kind of come out on top just because they are so beautiful. Like the perfume on this wine, just and across the board for all the 2019s, there's just an effortlessness. It's a wonderful play of red fruits and blue and black fruits as well. So you get kind of a play of in the glass of those aromas coming off, and weather-wise, it was perfect. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better year than 2019, just across the board with a cool spring. The soils were, you know, well hydrated, and then just a very cool, moderate spring, cool, moderate summer, and just a long, extended fall that just was no heat spikes, no cold spells, no rain, no hail, just very easy. It was easy to dial in those aromas and textures that we were tasting in the grapes. And we just kept our hands off it in the winery and just did very minimal pump overs. And it just was a fabulous vintage.
You know, it strikes me as a vintage that if you're a Cabernet drinker, like I am, Napa Valley, of course, you can drink these wines on the early side. Like this is not one where I'm like, I think it was maybe 2015. I was like, okay, like we got to wait a little while on these wines.
Yeah.
And I've tasted, you know, anytime I taste a 15, I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty massively powerful vintage. But the 19s to me are just like, you pull that cork, they're so pretty right out of the gate. It'll be really interesting to watch them evolve because the acidity's there, the tannin structure's there, and then that prettiness of the fruit. It's anyway, I'm not going to go on anymore about how much I love 2019. we can move on and taste another one, and then I can maybe talk more about it. But that Calistoga, really exceptional, Chris. Nice wine. all those like fruit forward qualities that you mentioned. Definitely something that's, I think, unique in the portfolio to that wine. That black truffle note that you mentioned, that's something that you tend to see in that wine versus our other beautiful Cabernets. Speaking of beautiful cabs, here we go. We got the 2019 Cliff Lede Diamond Mountain. One thing I'll mention about this wine that's kind of special, it's kind of, I guess, bittersweet maybe. It's an excellent wine from an excellent vintage, but this is the last Diamond Mountain cab we will be making because we lost the vineyard source. Someone purchased it and decided to replant the vineyard, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it was
and so
need of replanting.
It was in need of replanting. And then the new owners don't want to, I guess, sell us fruit from the vineyard. So the sad thing is that this wine, this is the last vintage of the Diamond Mountain. However, I'm not going to announce what's coming down the pipeline, but we've got some really cool new Appellation Series vineyard selection wines coming that I'm very excited about, but I won't say more than that. We'll talk about those wines in a webinar at the appropriate time.
Yes.
Tonight is about 2019. We're talking about Diamond Mountain. Perennially a favorite of mine. I mean, ever since the beginning, I think I've always found this has a lot of that like dark fruit and just very like a very focused wine. But tell us more about what you see in this wine. I mean, this is from a kind of a historic, I guess historic for us, right? Like we really appreciate the source of this vineyard. Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, this was the first vineyard David Abreu ever planted as his, when he first started his vineyard management company. So it's planted in 1980. And it's a very steep terraced hillside. And about from the below at the bottom of the vineyard, about 600 feet, and to the top of the vineyard, about 900 feet. So very steep, high vineyard up in the Diamond Mountain appellation. There's a lot of volcanic soils on Diamond Mountain, but this particular section was more Aiken loam, which is more boulders, rocks, and gravel. There's a little bit of 2-foot tough sections in the bottom, which are volcanic ash, but majority of this vineyard is very rocky. And this just has produced an amazing wine since 2005, I think might have been the first. So it's been a great run of Diamond Mountain vintages from that vineyard. And again, 2019, I won't go back over how amazing that vintage was, but
I'm pretty sure it was amazing.
A beautiful site. Mixed with a beautiful terroir, a beautiful vineyard, and what more could you ask for? I think, you know, we've had the luck of getting a lot of high scores over the years for bar poetry and Tokalo and songbook and all throughout the portfolio, and we've never really submitted the Calistoga or the Diamond Mountain or the Hell Mountain in for scores, but gosh, when I taste this wine, I wish I could put it in front of Robert Parker or Antonio Galoni and just have them smell it, because I think this is a fabulous wine, and I think that's been a benefit to all of our wine club members. They get to have some of these gems that nobody knows about, and
that's right.
They may not be able to sit down and say, hey, this is a 100-point wine, but I don't tasting this wine. It's
pretty. You can say Jason Lede gave it 100 points. That carries any weight.
My dad gave it 100 points.
Cliff probably 100 points. It's damn good. And again, coming back to I think when I mentioned that like purity here, like it's just compared to the Calistoga, which, you know, has a lot of that like bigger fruit right up front. This is like very focused, and I find the tannins kind of come in a little bit later. You know, they're there. They come in a little bit later. Wow, you know, for our last Diamond Mountain Cabernet, that is really, really nice. I think, you know, between both of these wines, I don't know, what do you say, 10, 15, 20 years plus, you could age these?
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is not something that you necessarily need to drink right away, although, hey, it's pretty damn good right now. So that's the wines. I see that. I just want to cover a couple things that we're seeing in the chat. It looks like we do have, oh yeah, Mary's having a 2015. That's great. You know, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I haven't had 2015 in a while, so I'll have to revisit it. I know I mentioned it's a pretty big vintage, so I know it's going to be one that is just blossoming for years and years. So I'm going to come back to that. Vanessa's having the 2019 down right now. She loves it straight out of the bottle. Sad that it's the last one. It is sad, you know, but unfortunately, it's part of the wine business. Unless you own the vineyard, and we're blessed. We're so lucky that we own 60 acres here in Stag's Leap. We've got the Poetry Vineyard. That's our estate property, and we can create these wonderful wines. Calistoga is an estate property, so it's like, of course, you want to own all your vineyards, but there's some barriers to just going out there and doing that. So you can't have everything. But I can assure you that you will all be so super excited about the new appellation wines that are coming this way. These are regions that we've wanted to work with forever, and we've never really done it because there hasn't been room for the wines in the portfolio, and now there is. So just don't worry. There's going to be great things coming your way, and who knows? One day there might be a source in Diamond, and we fall in love with, and Chris is excited about, and Allison is excited about, and we may be able to bring a Diamond Mountain Cabernet back. So with that, guys, I'll finish up with a couple last comments, and if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat right now. I'll check the Q&A real quick just to make sure we covered everything. Looks like we got some requests to come do tastings. We try to get out there as much as we can. If you have an event or something that's going on that you want us to be involved with, you can always email us, info@ladefamilywines.com. Send the information. We'd love to check into it. We do have, people moving around the country all the time. And so we definitely want to be able to connect with you in your market. And of course, we want to connect with you here too. And that kind of brings me to my last point. Again, if you can come out and visit us in Napa, we'd love to see you. It's a beautiful time of year. Before I turn the video off, I'm going to spin it around so you guys can see what's going on in behind us right now with the way the sun's setting on the hills. I will reiterate that we do have some great holiday gifting options. So if you guys are looking for things, we'd love to add some of these wines to your cellars if you want. You could buy yourself something nice, right? Treat yourself. You can do that. Or you can buy a nice gift for one of your friends, family members, corporate gifts. We got it all. I guess that pretty much covers it. So thank you, Chris, for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time. I know that, these long days are somewhat coming to an end, but you really had to push it through harvest. And I know the 22s are going to be great. All the wines tonight were exceptional. Check out the sparkling. There's not going to be much left. LadyFamilyWines.com. Check out the Marla. There's not going to be much of that hanging around after this webinar. And thank you all for joining. I'm going to fulfill my promise. I'm going to flip this around so you guys can all see, and then we will talk to you guys, or see you guys, I guess, in December with the new releases. Hopefully that's showing up on there. Yeah, that's good.